Chapter 1. Consciousness. Vacara Akusala Citta. We're going to start the next class in a couple of weeks by talking about Akusala Citta, or unwholesome consciousness. It's very easy. I will give you the technique to memorize this. For now, these 12 types of consciousness include 1. Somanasa, pleasure, Sahagata, accompanied by Dithagata, wrong view, Sampayuta, accompanied by Asankarika, unprompted, or with pleasure, with wrong view, unprompted. 2. Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Sasankarika, prompted, or with pleasure, with wrong view, prompted. 3. Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Vipayuta, unconnected, Asankarika, or with pleasure, without wrong view, unprompted. 4. Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Vipayuta Sasankarika, or with pleasure, without wrong view, prompted. These first 4 are Lobha Mula Citta, or consciousness rooted in attachment. Notice how number 1 and number 2 are Dithagata Sampayuta, accompanied by wrong view, and number 3 and number 4 are Dithagata Vipayuta, not accompanied by wrong view. It's very easy. 5. Upeka, indifference, Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika, or with indifference, with wrong view, unprompted. 6. Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Sasankarika, or with indifference, with wrong view, prompted. 7. Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Vipayuta Asankarika, or with indifference, without wrong view, unprompted. 8. Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Vipayuta Sasankarika, or with indifference, without wrong view, prompted. These second 4 are also Lobha Mula Citta, or consciousness rooted in attachment. I will give you many examples and explain all of these one by one next week. It's my duty to help you understand this. The next 2 are Dosa Mula Citta, or consciousness rooted in ill will. 9. Domanasa, displeasure, Sahagata Patiya, ill will, Sampayuta Asankarika, or with displeasure, with ill will, unprompted. 10. Domanasa Sahagata Patiya Sampayuta Sasankarika, or with displeasure, with ill will, prompted. And the last 2 are Moha Mula Citta, or consciousness rooted in delusion. 11. Upeka Sahagata Visakicha, doubt, Sampayuta, or with indifference, with doubt. 12. Upeka Sahagata Udacha, restlessness, Sampayuta, or with indifference, with restlessness. These are the 12 kinds of unwholesome consciousness. Try to memorize them and understand the meaning of these. I will explain them in detail later. May all of you fulfill your morality, tranquility, and wisdom, then attain supreme bliss in this very life. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Today is the 17th of January, 1998. Today, we're going to discuss Akusala Citta, which means unwholesome or immoral consciousness. Whenever we do any evil acts, they are done by one of these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness. Lobha Mula Citta. In Pali, the first type of unwholesome consciousness is Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika. Somanasa Sahagata means accompanied by pleasurable feeling, Dithagata Sampayuta means connected with wrong view, wrong belief, or wrong idea, and Asankarika means unprompted. In this context, unprompted means we do something instantly, without any internal or external inducement. We do it right away, without premeditation. So this first unwholesome consciousness means, with pleasure, with wrong view, unprompted, it arises spontaneously. We should look at some examples in order to understand what this means. Let's say a person likes to gamble and loses his money. After losing his money, he goes to a friend's house and asks to borrow some money. But his friend says, "I don't have money to loan you." Then the friend goes to take a shower. While he's showering, the person who likes to gamble sees some money on the table and instantly decides to steal it. He does this with joy. So, in this example, instantly means unprompted, with joy means with pleasure, and he steals the money with wrong view because he doesn't feel that he's doing anything wrong. He figures that he's already asked to borrow money, but since his friend wouldn't give him any, he was justified in stealing it. In other words, he doesn't see the stealing as evil. He believes this, he has wrong view. So he instantly steals his friend's money with joy and with wrong view. This is an example of the first unwholesome consciousness. Does this make sense? If you understand this first one, the next 7 Lobha Mula Citta will make sense to you right away. I'll give you another example of the first unwholesome consciousness to help make it clear. A man who has sex with a married woman might think that, although the woman is married, it's okay because she loves him. He might think that committing adultery is not evil. This is wrong view. So he commits sexual misconduct unprompted, joyfully, and with wrong view. See how his actions are accompanied by a pleasurable feeling, with happiness, connected with wrong view, and unprompted. He just does it right away. The second type of unwholesome consciousness is Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Sasankarika. Again, Somanasa Sahagata means accompanied by pleasure and Dithagata Sampayuta means connected with wrong view. And Sasankarika means prompted. In this context, prompted means that the action was induced by others or perhaps originated within oneself. For our example, let's use the same guy who gambled, lost his money, and went to his friend's house to ask to borrow more money. But this time, a third friend is there. The third friend says to the gambler, "You should steal that money on the table. You asked to borrow money but he wouldn't give it to you. Just go and steal it." So, the third friend induced the gambler to steal the money. This means prompted. The friend who stole the money felt good about it, figuring that he'd politely asked and been declined, and that he had to take it. He thinks it's not evil. But he has the wrong idea, the wrong opinion. This second type of unwholesome consciousness means, with pleasure, with wrong view, prompted. We can think of many examples for this type of unwholesome consciousness. About 75% of our daily activities involve the arising of these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness. But if we can control our mind, be mindful, be aware of what's happening through meditation, we can control this unwholesome consciousness. If wholesome consciousness arises, then unwholesome consciousness goes away. There's just one consciousness at a time. And this is why we need to practice meditation, be mindful, all the time. Otherwise, these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness arise in our mind. The third type of unwholesome consciousness is Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Vipayuta Asankarika. This is like the first unwholesome consciousness we talked about, except now there's Dithagata Vipayuta, which means unconnected with wrong view. Using the same example as for the first type of unwholesome consciousness, the gambler sees a lot of money on the table and instantly steals it. The stealing is accompanied by a pleasurable feeling. He was very happy that he now had money. But without wrong view means that he knew it wasn't a good thing that he did. Still, he felt that he had to steal it because he needed the money. So, here, his view is right. This means without wrong view. He stole his friend's money instantly, joyfully, but without wrong view. The fourth type of unwholesome consciousness is Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Vipayuta Sasankarika. We can use the example from the second type of unwholesome consciousness here, except now the gambler knew that what he did was not right, not good, and not fair. But he felt it was necessary for him to steal it. So, at that time, the consciousness was the fourth type, with pleasure, without wrong view, prompted. But even if his friend didn't induce him, maybe he thought to himself, "I have to pay my bills, so I need to steal this money to do it." In that case, he induced himself, which is also prompted. So, prompted can be induced by someone else or by oneself. And after he steals the money, he feels happy. Now I have money and can pay my bills. This is with pleasure, without wrong view, prompted. These first four types of unwholesome consciousness are accompanied by a pleasurable feeling. The next four are accompanied by an indifferent feeling, which we call Upeka Sahagata. I would like you to remember the Pali, so we won't have to use the English later. The Pali words describe things much more accurately and succinctly. The fifth type of unwholesome consciousness is Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika. Upeka Sahagata means accompanied by indifference. Dithagata Sampayuta means connected with wrong view, and Asankarika means unprompted, right? See, they're almost the same. If you already know the first type of unwholesome consciousness, then the remaining 7 types are very easy to remember. The first one is Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika and the fifth one is Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika, only the first word is different. And when you try to remember the second type, just know that the last word, Asankarika, is changed to Sasankarika, or unprompted, to prompted. Otherwise, it's the same as the first one, right? So, the first and second types are the same, except that the first is unprompted and the second is prompted. The third and fourth types are also the same as one another, except for unprompted versus prompted. But the first and second types differ from the third and fourth types in that the first two are connected with wrong view and the third and fourth are without wrong view. That's it. So after you remember the first 4 types, accompanied by pleasurable feeling, it's easy because the next group of 4 follow the same pattern, except now there's upeka sahagata. Only the feeling changes, from somanasa, or pleasure, to upeka, or indifference. Otherwise, they are the same as the first 4. This should help you remember these. In our examples for the first 4 types of unwholesome consciousness, we used stealing, which is unwholesome consciousness rooted in attachment. In other words, stealing is rooted in attachment. Or if we commit adultery, sexual misconduct, it's also rooted in attachment. These are just 2 examples, of course. Of the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness, the first 8 are rooted in attachment, the 9th and 10th are rooted in ill will, and the 11th and 12th are rooted in delusion, or ignorance. So why do we call it Akusala Citta? It's called Akusala because all of these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness spring from attachment, ill will, or delusion. That's why they are called Akusala. Now, we need an example for the 5th type of unwholesome consciousness, which once again is upeka sahagata ditthagata sampayuta asankarika, or, accompanied by indifferent feeling, connected with wrong view, unprompted. Let's say a man goes somewhere and falls in love with a woman he knows to be married. He has sex with her, without any premeditation, unprompted. In other words, he didn't plan to do it but it just happened. At the time, he didn't have any particular feeling about it. The feeling was accompanied by indifference, it didn't feel strange or unusual to him. And he committed the sexual misconduct with wrong view, although it's evil and not right, he believed it was okay because he thought the woman loved him. The 6th type of unwholesome consciousness is upeka sahagata ditthagata sampayuta sasankarika. We can use the same example of the person who commits sexual misconduct from the 5th type of unwholesome consciousness. But now, the difference is prompted. This time, one of his friends keeps saying to him, "Don't think about it. Just go ahead and do it." He didn't want to do it before, but he did it after his friend kept inducing him. This means prompted, induced by someone else. Or maybe he kept thinking, "She loves me, so I should do this." After he thought about it many times, he finally did it. This is also prompted, induced by himself, or internal inducement. The 7th type of unwholesome consciousness is upeka sahagata ditthagata vipayuta asankarika, or, accompanied by indifference, unconnected with wrong view, unprompted. We can use the same basic example. When the man committed sexual misconduct, there was an indifferent feeling about it. He knew it wasn't right, it wasn't fair, and he knew he'd feel bad if someone did that with his wife, but he couldn't control his mind and just did it. No one induced him, nor did he think about it beforehand, he just did it right away. The 8th type of unwholesome consciousness is upeka sahagata ditthagata vipayuta sasankarika, or, accompanied by indifference, without wrong view, prompted. Here, we can use many examples. Maybe the same person we've been using commits the sexual misconduct because his friend induced him or instigated him to do it. We call this prompted. When the man did it, there was an indifferent feeling. And he knew it wasn't fair or right to do it, but his friend talked him into doing it. These 8 types of unwholesome consciousness we've been talking about are rooted in attachment, or loba mula citta. For the duration of this course of study, we'll be using these terms every day. If we memorize them now, it will be very easy for us later on. But if you can't remember these terms and their meanings, you won't understand. So I'd like you to try to remember perhaps 10 types of consciousness per day. We have 121 types of consciousness, so maybe you'll have them all memorized in 12 days. Again, these first 8 types of consciousness are rooted in attachment. Attachment is one of 6 roots: attachment, ill will, ignorance, non-attachment, goodwill, and wisdom. These are the 6 roots. When we commit evil, one of these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness arises. Thus far, we've been talking about the 8 loba mula citta. Dosa mula citta. The next 2 types of unwholesome consciousness are rooted in ill will. The first type is domanasa sahagata patiya sampayuta asankarika, or with displeasure, with ill will, unprompted. And the second type is domanasa sahagata patiya sampayuta sasankarika, or with displeasure, with ill will, prompted. We also need examples to help us understand these clearly. For the first type, let's say someone goes to the market, gets in an argument with someone, and kills the person. At that time, the killer's mind was accompanied by displeasure, connected with ill will, or hatred, and the murder occurred without premeditation. As an example of the second type, the same person goes to the market and gets in an argument with someone. His friend is there and keeps urging him, "Kill him. The person doesn't want to do it, but his friend then says, "You have to kill him or he might kill you." So after repeated inducement by his friend, the person finally kills the other person. In this example of the second type, the killing was prompted. And at the time, the killer's mind was accompanied by displeasure and connected with ill will. Now, we go to unwholesome consciousness rooted in delusion. Moha Mula Citta. The first type is Upeka Sahagata Visakicha Sampayuta, or with indifference, with doubt. Here, indifference means, accompanied by an indifferent feeling. Connected with doubt refers to skepticism, perplexity, or indecision. We can't make a decision in our mind. We might doubt the existence of the Buddha or the efficacy of the Buddha's teachings. The second type is Upeka Sahagata Udacha Sampayuta, or with indifference, with restlessness. Here, restlessness means disquietude, mental distraction or confusion. We especially see this restlessness when we sit in meditation and our mind wanders, is distracted, and we're unable to concentrate on an object. Even though we try to fix our mind on our primary meditation object, maybe on our nostrils, on our abdomen, or on some sensation in the body, we're unable to concentrate. We call this restlessness. When you sit in meditation for 1 hour, this type of consciousness might arise for 58 of those minutes, right? It's very hard, so we need to train. The 10 kinds of evil. Now we know the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness. 8 types are rooted in attachment, 2 are rooted in ill will, and 2 are rooted in delusion. Whenever we commit any of the 10 kinds of evil, one of these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness has arisen. What are the 10 kinds of evil? 1. Killing. 2. Stealing. 3. Sexual misconduct. 4. Lying. 5. Slandering. 6. Harsh speech. 7. Vain, frivolous talk or gossip. 8. Covetousness. 9. Hatred. 10. False, wrong view. There are these 10 kinds of evil committed by 12 types of unwholesome consciousness through deed, word, or thought. Through deed means by physical action, through word means by verbal action, and through thought means by mental action. We commit these kinds of evil either through deed, word, or thought. It's pretty easy to see how killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying are wrong, right? Slandering is evil too. Let's say 2 people get along fine, but you try to cause a rift between them by talking negatively about one of them. This is slandering. The next one, harsh speech, is using hard or bad words, while vain talk is gossip or useless talk. These are evil too. They're not good. Covetousness means that we want to acquire someone else's belongings unlawfully. Hatred is fairly obvious, and we'll be talking more about the last kind of evil, false view. So, let's look at these 10 kinds of evil more closely. 1. Killing is generally committed by deed, physical action. What types of unwholesome consciousness arise when we kill? The 2 types rooted in ill will, or dosa mula citta. You have ill will and so you kill, right? 2. Stealing is generally committed by deed also. What types of unwholesome consciousness arise when we steal? One of the 8 types of unwholesome consciousness rooted in attachment, right? Maybe you want another person's money. What if you have enough money but decide that you don't want another person to have their own property anymore, and so you steal it? This is ill will, right? So, for stealing, 10 kinds of unwholesome consciousness can arise. Perhaps consciousness rooted in attachment, or perhaps consciousness rooted in ill will. 3. Sexual misconduct. 2. Is generally committed by deed. What types of unwholesome consciousness arise when we commit sexual misconduct? One of the 8 types rooted in attachment. This makes sense, right? The next 4, lying, slandering, harsh speech, and vain talk, are committed through word, or by verbal action. 4. Lying is when we use false speech, we don't speak the truth. At that time, what types of consciousness arise? Perhaps one of the 8 rooted in attachment. Maybe you want something and so you lie to get it, or perhaps you lie in order to hurt someone, which is based on ill will. So, 10 types of unwholesome consciousness, either rooted in attachment, or rooted in ill will. 5. For slandering, maybe we talk negatively about a person because we want their friend to not like them anymore. Or maybe it's because we want the person to be our friend only. Can you see how this evil could be rooted in either attachment or ill will? If you want the person to be only your friend, then it's attachment. And if you want to break 2 friends apart and be enemies, then it's ill will. So, 10 types of unwholesome consciousness can arise for slandering. 6. Harsh speech involves saying things based on anger, so it must be based on consciousness rooted in ill will. It's because you got mad, right? Therefore, the 2 types of unwholesome consciousness rooted in ill will can arise. 7. Vain talk or gossip can be based upon the same 10 types of unwholesome consciousness as for lying or slandering, perhaps those rooted in attachment, or perhaps those rooted in ill will. The last 3 kinds of evil, covetousness, hatred, and wrong view, are committed through thought or mental actions. 8. Covetousness, once again, might be wishing to acquire someone else's property unlawfully. We don't do or say anything, though, we just think this, it's just mental action. We commit this evil through our thoughts. Covetousness can be committed by the 8 types of unwholesome consciousness rooted in attachment, because you want something to become yours. 9. Hatred is about wishing for something bad to happen to something or someone. It is based on the 2 types of unwholesome consciousness rooted in ill will. 10. False, or wrong view is associated with the 4 types of unwholesome consciousness rooted in attachment and connected with wrong view, or ditthagata sampayuta, i.e., the 1st, 2nd, 5th and 6th, right? All kinds of evil, all kinds of crime, all kinds of sin, are included in these 10 kinds of evil. We commit these by physical action, verbal action, or mental action, or by deed, word or thought, via these 12 types of unwholesome consciousness. Let's explore false view a bit more, as it is of different types. 1. Some people deny the results of karma, action. They might say, whatever we do, good or bad, it doesn't make any difference. This is one kind of wrong view. 2. Some people deny both cause and result. People have different faces, different colors, different possessions, and different types of knowledge. Why are people different? Because of previous causes in previous lives. These differences depend on causes. Different causes yield different results. But some people deny both causes and results. This is also wrong view. 3. Some people deny karma itself. They might say, if you want to do something, just do it. There's no future life, no sin, and no good either. If we deny karma, this is also wrong view. 4. Some people think that after you die you just become a human being again. They don't believe that you can be reborn as an animal or in another woeful state. This is a wrong view called eternalism. They just think that our life keeps on going. 5. Some people think that there is no heaven, no hell, and no human world in the next life. They just think that everything ends when you die. This is a wrong view called annihilism. If you have any of these different types of wrong view, then one of the 4 types of unwholesome consciousness connected to ditthagata sampayuta, either the 1st, 2nd, 5th or 6th type of unwholesome consciousness rooted in attachment, has arisen in your mind. So now we know the 10 kinds of evil and how we commit them through the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness via physical, verbal or mental action. The purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation is to get rid of all kinds of defilements, or unwholesome consciousness. If you have unwholesome consciousness arising in your mind as a cause, then there will be unwholesome results. So we practice meditation to get rid of unwholesome consciousness. When we practice meditation, we fix our mind on our primary object, perhaps on the rising and falling of our abdomen. As our abdomen moves upward, we are aware of the movement from the beginning of the movement until the end and make a mental note, rising. When the abdomen falls downward, we are aware of the movement from the beginning until the end and make a mental note, falling. In just 1 second of practicing in this way, at that time there is no attachment, there's nothing we want, because our mind is fixed on our object. For the same reason, there is no ill will. And because our mind is fixed in one-pointedness on the object of meditation, there is no doubt about the law of cause and effect, about the practice of meditation or the Buddha's doctrine, and there is no restlessness. In other words, in that moment, no unwholesome consciousness arises in our mind. But this is just temporary, right? The next second, your mind is off wandering, thinking, wanting this or that. Attachment has come again, or maybe you feel unhappy, which is consciousness rooted in ill will. Perhaps you have doubt about something or your mind is restless. The 12 types of unwholesome consciousness have arisen again. This is why we have to concentrate our mind on our object, so we can get rid of unwholesome consciousness. Later on, after we gain enlightenment, certain types of unwholesome consciousness will go away and never return again. I would like all of you to know about a Pali word, arya, which refers to purity from mental defilement or unwholesome consciousness. There are 4 classes of Aryan disciples. 1. Stream winner, stream enterer, or sotapanna. 2. Once returner, sakadagami. 3. Never returner, anagami, and 4. Arahant. The stream winner is one who has attained the first stage of sainthood, someone who has practiced meditation and gained enlightenment for the first time. At that time, the stream winner eradicates the 4 types of unwholesome consciousness connected with wrong view. Number 1, number 2, number 5 and number 6. 1. Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika, or, with pleasure, with wrong view, unprompted. 2. Somanasa Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Sasankarika, or, with pleasure, with wrong view, prompted. 5. Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Asankarika, or, with indifference, with wrong view, unprompted. 6. Upeka Sahagata Dithagata Sampayuta Sasankarika, or, with indifference, with wrong view, prompted. These 4 types of unwholesome consciousness will not occur in a stream winner's mind for the rest of his life. The stream winner has destroyed 2 fetters. There are 10 fetters, which we'll talk about later: self-delusion and doubt. Self-delusion has been destroyed because while practicing meditation he came to understand that there's no man, no woman, no individual entity. Rather, there is only mind and matter, coming and going. And as the stream winner now understands this, there is no longer wrong view. He has eradicated and destroyed the 2 fetters of self-delusion and doubt. There is no longer any doubt about the law of cause and effect or about the Buddha, his teachings, or his disciples because he has experienced these truths for himself. Although a stream winner has not eradicated anger, it has been weakened by about 50%. A stream winner can still become angry, but envy and stinginess, 2 of the 4 mental factors in the dosa, or anger, group of mental states, the other 2 being anger and worry, remorse, are completely eradicated. A stream winner is still capable of speaking angrily, divisively, harshly and vainly, but will do so very seldom. Through eradicating their wrong view, perfecting their sila, virtue, and weakening their dosa, any bad karma a stream winner commits will lack the strength for a future rebirth in the lower realms. A once returner is one who has attained the 2nd stage of sainthood. This type of person is called a once returner because he will be reborn in the sensual realm only one more time before attaining arahant and entering nibbana. In contrast, most stream winners will be reborn 7 more times. A once returner weakens, but has not eradicated, the potentiality of unwholesome consciousness rooted in ill will. Number 9 and number 10. 9. Domanasa Sahagata Patiya Sampayuta Asankarika, or, with displeasure, with ill will, unprompted. 10. Domanasa Sahagata Patiya Sampayuta Sasankarika, or, with displeasure, with ill will, prompted. These types of unwholesome consciousness are not eradicated because the once returner has only attenuated 2 fetters: sense desire and hatred. Sense desire means that we want something. We want to see, to hear, to smell, to eat, to touch. As for hatred, ordinary or worldly people get mad when they don't like something or someone. For a once returner, though, they might get mad, or feel worry or remorse, but only very seldom, and it is short-lived, as their dosa, and lobha too, have been weakened by about 75%. So the fetters of sense desire and hatred have been attenuated in a once returner. A once returner knows for himself that his lobha, dosa, and moha have been lessened and that his mental faculties have strengthened. We call one who has attained the 3rd stage of sainthood a never returner. A never returner who dies will never again return to a sensual realm, which means the human world or heaven. According to Buddhism, there are 31 realms of existence. We will be discussing these in detail later. A never returner eradicates the 2 types of unwholesome consciousness rooted in ill will, number 9 and number 10, as he has completely destroyed sense desire and hatred. This type of person will never get mad again. And, if he or she is married, upon attaining this stage of enlightenment they will not stay together anymore. Sense desire and hatred are completely eradicated. An arahant is one who has attained the 4th stage of sainthood. An arahant has eradicated the remaining 5 fetters: attachment to form sphere, attachment to formless sphere, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. He has destroyed all 10 kinds of fetters, so all unwholesome consciousness has been eradicated. There are 12 types of unwholesome consciousness, right? An arahant has none of them, as they have been completely eradicated and destroyed. That's why we call an arahant worthy of respect. When I talk about the form sphere or the formless sphere, I'm talking about the Brahma realm. I mentioned the 31 planes of existence a few minutes ago. Among them, we have 4 woeful states: hell, the animal kingdom, hungry ghost, and demons, the human and heaven realms. There are 6 planes in the celestial realm, and 20 planes in the Brahma, or super being, realm. The form sphere refers to the lower 16 planes of the Brahma realm, where beings have body and mind. We call this the form, or fine form, sphere. The formless sphere refers to the Arupa plane, the top 4 Brahma planes, where beings have consciousness but no body. So an arahant is not attached, that is, he doesn't want to go to the form or formless spheres. Attachment to these spheres means fettered, and an arahant has removed all fetters. An arahant will never be reborn again, life is finished. By this, though, I don't mean there is nothing, rather, I mean there is supreme bliss. I would like all of you to practice meditation and become one of these Aryan disciples. Thank you for your time today.